which city is the cheapest in France? Yes, I'm Roman, and for today's video, we will dive into the country of France in order to see which city is the cheapest of them all. Certainly, it is impossible to go through all 30,000 cities, communities, towns, villages, and you name it. And that is why I've decided to limit this video to 5 major cities based on population size. My source of reference for choosing these 5 cities is INSEE, which is the National Institute for Statistical and Economic Information in France, better known as Institut National de la Statistique et des Études Économiques. Now, in order to see which city is the cheapest, there are 3 criteria that we will be using. The first being transportation, the second housing, and the third grocery. We will first start with transportation. However, we will only look at monthly transportation cards, which usually are unlimited and include metros, buses, trams, and that is it. So we're not really considering major transportation lines like trains or even taxis, Ubers, etc. With that said, we will start with Paris. In Paris, for the Navigo Pass, we are between 84 and 90 euros. Then, in Marseille, we have the Pass Permanent RTM, which is usually between 50 to 64 euros. And in Lyon, the Pass TCL is 30 to 90 euros. Then in Toulouse, the TCO Pass is 12 to 57 euros, and in Nice, the Pass Sudazar is between 27 and 53 euros. Now, let's list the order starting with the cheapest. In first place, we have Toulouse, then Nice, then Marseille, then Lyon, then Paris. Number 2, we will look at housing. For housing, we're only considering 1 or 2 bedroom apartments. It doesn't matter if you're flat sharing or if you're living by yourself. And our main source will be Leboncoin. That is one of the most popular sites that people use to search for apartments here in France, but it is not the only one, of course. And I will only look on the first page. Another criteria is that we will first look at each city within the heart of the city, if I may say. And then we will do a second search where we increase the search radius by 10 kilometers. Let's go. Starting off with Paris. The average cost of bedrooms 1 to 2 in Paris is between 550 and 2,400 euros, with the smallest living space being 9 square meters. That is ridiculous. Most of the spaces are small, by the way. However, the average price for it to feel comfortable if you want to search for apartments would be for it to have about 1,100 euros. This will give you much more choice or options when choosing where you'd like to live. Now, if we increase our search radius by 10 kilometers, the new average becomes 900 euros, surprisingly. And interesting enough, with this new search, you can even find apartments as cheap as 500 euros. Therefore, the more you extend the search radius, the cheaper you might find apartments, however the farther you will be from the center of the city. Next, we have Lyon. Following the same metrics and logic, the prices in Lyon range from 450 to 1,400 euros, with the average price being around 650 to 700. Therefore, with this amount of money, you can feel relatively comfortable searching for apartments within Lyon. And when we increase the search radius by 10 kilometers, the average cost balances at around 650, which is definitely not bad. And based on personal experience, if you are willing to extend the search radius a little bit more, even up to about 30 kilometers, you will even find apartments for 350 euros. Some of them are studios and some of them are 2 bedrooms, but you'll be far from the center of the city. Number 3, Marseille. The general pricing will be from 590 euros to 1,390 euros, with the average cost being 700 to 800 euros. Therefore, if you want to feel comfortable again with spending power, if you have around 800 euros, you wouldn't really have a hard time finding apartments. Of course, everything depends on your personal taste, but this money gives you more choices, if I may say. And when we extend the searching radius to about 10 kilometers, the lowest price we see is 490 euros, and the new average to be comfortable is at about 700 euros. Number 4, Toulouse. The general price ranges from 470 euros to 1,200 euros. That is simply amazing. And the average cost, if I may say, if you want to have flexibility and freedom while searching for apartments, would be between 600 and 700 euros. And if you increase the search radius by 10, then that new average drops to about 600 euros. That is rather impressive, if I may say. And of course, I imagine if you extend the radius, you could find things way much cheaper. Number 5 at last, we have Nice. The average price ranges from 480 to 1,950 euros, with the average price range for it to be compatible being 800 to 900 euros. That one surprised me, it was quite expensive. And when you increase the search radius by 10 kilometers, then there is simply no noticeable difference in terms of pricing. With that said, in first place, based on housing, the cheapest city of the 5 is Toulouse, followed by Lyon, then Marseille, then Nice, and then Paris, which is not surprising. Finally, our third category will be food or grocery, and this will be calculated based on one person, a single person, and for the month. There were no official sources, therefore I relied on 2 different sources for my information. The first is going on Google, and the first source I found, the first information to pop up in front of my eyes was what I chose, and the second source was ChatGPT. Now, if you're in the Parisian area, based on Google, you need 250 to 350 euros per month. And based on ChatGPT, that would be 300 to 400 euros. It's relatively close. In Lyon, based on Google, you will need 392 euros. And based on ChatGPT, you will need 270 to 360 euros. Quick pause here. Based on my spending expenses, I usually spend between 200 and 250 euros per month for grocery. And for some exceptional months when I want to do certain creative recipes or exceptional recipes, my list can go up to 300 euros. Marseille, based on Google, the cost will be 221 euros. Wow. And ChatGPT says 260 to 350 euros. Then for Toulouse, Google says 150 euros to 200 euros, while ChatGPT says 250 euros to 340 euros. Then for Nice, this one is quite interesting. Google says 227 euros to 228 euros, and ChatGPT says 280 euros to 389 euros. Now, based on what we're seeing here, I would have to say the cheapest city has to be Toulouse based on food, which now gives our final listing to Toulouse in first place, followed by Marseille, Lyon, then Nice, Paris. With all of our data now combined, let us see which city reigns as the cheapest major city in France. In first place, drum roll, we have Toulouse. Toulouse is the cheapest major city overall. Wow. So, if you're thinking about living here in France, I hope this video was useful for you. And if you'd like for me to maybe look on different cities more in depth, then certainly I could do that. Or if you like for me to compare other cities or using other metrics, then that would simply be an easy task, relatively. Just let me know and I'll get working and I'll start my research. With that said, let me know where you live and how expensive it is or how cheap it is where you live. And if any of these prices are different from your realities, especially where food or groceries is concerned, let me know how much you spend per month for grocery. And maybe if I made any mistake, maybe some information here has been updated, let me know again in comments down below. So like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Yeah.